There is a kind of loneliness that has absolutely nothing to do with being alone. It's this profound, silent type of isolation, the kind that can sit right beside you at a crowded table. It can hold your hand in a marriage. It can stand in a room full of people who love you and still make you feel like you're standing in an entirely empty house. Welcome to this explainer of a really beautiful Buddhist parable called The Merchant and the Doorway. Today, we're going to explore the quiet suffering that so often stays hidden inside our busy, modern lives. We're going to walk through this story exactly as it's been passed down and just let its calm, reflective wisdom speak directly to the parts of us that sometimes feel unseen. Part 1. The Merchant's Hidden Loneliness. Our story begins in a busy trading town along an old river route, where there lived a merchant named Vira. It was a place of warm earth tones, of dawn light catching the dust of the road, and of this constant, unhurried motion. Now, by every visible measure, Vira's life was completely full. His stall in the market was one of the busiest in the entire town, and customers called out his name warmly as they passed by. He had a wife, 2 children, and aging parents, all living together under the very same roof. In the evenings, neighbors would often gather at his door to trade news and laughter before the warm, natural light faded into dusk. But most nights, after everyone else had finally gone to sleep, Vera sat alone in the dark of his own kitchen. And in those quiet hours, he felt a loneliness so complete it actually frightened him. It made absolutely no sense to him. He was literally never physically alone. He couldn't even remember the last time he had eaten a meal without someone sitting across the table from him. And still, something deep inside him felt entirely unreached. It was as if every single conversation he had all day long happened through a thick pane of glass. He felt close enough to see everyone, but just too far to actually touch them. But he told no one about this, because what would he even say? I'm surrounded by people who love me and I still feel abandoned. He thought it sounded ungrateful. He thought it sounded broken. So he carried it quietly, the way we so often carry the feelings we're most ashamed of. And he simply smiled through his busy, crowded, lonely days. Part 2. A question for the teacher. One evening, the Buddha passed through Vira's town, and the whole market gathered to hear him teach beneath the old banyan tree at its center. Vira stood at the very back of the crowd, among dozens of familiar faces, and felt, exactly as he always did, entirely apart from every single one of them. After the teaching ended and the crowd slowly dispersed into the twilight, Vira found himself still standing there, unable to leave. Buddha noticed him, the way he always noticed the person who stayed behind, and walked toward him. You have a question, Buddha said quietly. And it wasn't a guess. Vira hesitated for a long moment, and then the words came out low, almost like a painful confession. He said, Teacher, I do not understand myself. I am never without people. My house is full, my stall is full, my table is full every night, and still I feel as alone as a man abandoned on a mountain. I am ashamed to even say it out loud, because what right do I have to feel lonely when I have everything a lonely man is supposed to want? Part 3. Being seen versus being known. Buddha didn't answer immediately. He let the quiet of the evening settle. He looked out at the packed-away market, the empty stalls, the last of the evening crowd calling their goodbyes. And then he turned back and asked Vira a question of his own. When your customers greet you in the morning, what do they see? Vira replied, a merchant with good prices and a friendly face. And your neighbors, when they gather at your door in the evening. A man who always has news to share and a place to sit. And your family, at your table each night? Vira paused. A husband, a son, a father who provides for them. Buddha nodded slowly, his voice calm but piercing. Tell me, Vira, in all of that, in all those rooms full of people every single day, how many of them have met you? Not the merchant, not the neighbor, not the provider, you. Vira opened his mouth to answer and found he had absolutely no words. I don't understand, Vira finally said. I am there, in every one of those rooms. It is my face they see, my voice they hear. Your face, yes, Buddha said. But a face can be present in a room while the person behind it stays hidden entirely. Buddha pressed gently further. Tell me honestly, when your neighbors sit at your door in the evening, do you tell them about the nights you cannot sleep, wondering if you are failing your family? When your customers greet you, do they know about the fear you carry that one bad season could take everything you've built? When your children sit at your table, do they know their father sometimes feels like a stranger in his own life? Vira shook his head slowly, the weight of his secret burdens really heavy in the air. No, none of them know any of that.
Then how could they possibly reach you? Buddha said gently. You have spent your whole life becoming very good at being seen. The merchant, the neighbor, the father, and very little time letting yourself be known. Loneliness is not the absence of people around you. It is the absence of anyone who has met the part of you that isn't performing a role. You can be in a room with 50 people who see your face every day and still be entirely alone, if not one of them has ever met what's underneath it.
Then what do I do? Vira asked. I cannot simply tell everyone my private fears. Buddha smiled warmly at this. I am not asking you to tell everyone. I am asking you to tell someone. One honest sentence spoken to one person willing to actually hear it does more for loneliness than 100 crowded evenings of pleasant conversation. You have been trying to cure a hunger for closeness with an abundance of company, but closeness and company are not the same nourishment. A man can starve at a full table if none of the food is the kind he actually needs.
Vera sat with that profound truth for a long moment. I think, he said quietly, I have been so afraid that if people saw the real me, tired, frightened, unsure, they would think less of the man they thought they knew. So I kept the door of that room closed, even to the people I love most. And in protecting that door, Buddha said, you built the very walls you now call loneliness. The people were never the problem, Vera. The door was. Part 4. The Root of the Suffering. This beautiful story points to something the Buddhist tradition returns to so often, that our suffering frequently comes not from what is missing around us, but from what remains hidden within us.
Notice how clearly these two states of being contrast with one another, being seen versus being known. Loneliness is rarely solved by just adding more people to the mix. In fact, many of the loneliest people alive are constantly surrounded. What they're missing isn't proximity or company. It's true contact. That deep closeness that only happens when a person removes the mask and allows themselves to be known, not just seen.
Buddhism speaks a lot about the many masks and roles we carry. The provider, the parent, the person who always has it together. And look, these roles aren't false. Vira really was a good merchant, a good neighbor, and a devoted father. But when a good role becomes the only thing anyone ever meets, the true person underneath starts to feel invisible, even while being looked at constantly. Part 5. Opening the closed door. You see, the story doesn't end with Buddha telling Vira to go out and find new friends or attend more gatherings. The remedy the story points to is so much smaller, but honestly, much harder. It's the willingness to let one honest thing be seen. Let's look at how we can open that closed door. If Vira's loneliness sounds familiar to you, here's what this teaching asks of us. First, gently notice your roles. Notice where you might be playing a part so consistently that people have only ever met the role, not you. You can still be the strong one, but notice if that has quietly become the only version of you anyone sees. Second, pick one person you trust, even just a little bit, and share one true, unpolished thing, not your whole life story, just one honest sentence, something like, actually, I've been struggling a bit lately. That single sentence dissolves more loneliness than months of surface-level company. And third, remember that doors can open again. Feeling lonely in a crowded room is not proof that something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're broken or ungrateful for your family and friends. It is simply a sign that a door has been closed for a while. And doors, unlike walls, are built to be opened again. You don't need 100 new people in your life. You only need one open door. So I want to leave you with this final, quiet thought. If this story stayed with you today, think of the one person you might open that door to this week. And if you know someone who seems completely surrounded by a busy life, but who might be carrying the same quiet loneliness inside, well, perhaps they are the one waiting for an open door.